Canada is the only Group of 7 country without a federal law that can actually stop a historic building from being torn down. In 30 years, roughly 23% of its historic urban building stock has vanished, with structurally sound buildings demolished and replaced, while France, Germany, and the United Kingdom keep restoring theirs. This is not about nostalgia. It traces back to a single finance official in the 1940s, and the incentive structure he left behind still makes demolition the cheapest option. Walk down a high street in Paris, Berlin, or London, and you walk through living history. In France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, older buildings are treated as valuable assets worth saving and adapting, not just replacing. But across Canada, the urban streetscape tells a completely different story. Here, older structures are frequently treated as temporary, standing only until the next development cycle. In this market, tearing a building down and starting from scratch is almost always cheaper than careful preservation. With nearly a quarter of the country's historic urban buildings already gone, this pattern of erasure has created a massive environmental crisis. Construction and demolition debris now makes up more than 30% of the national solid waste stream. Because the system makes disposal so easy, Canada now leads the developed world in per capita waste production. This rate of destruction is not an inevitable consequence of growth, nor is it a simple matter of modern taste. It is the direct result of a system where policy has made demolition the most rational economic default. Canada stands alone among Group of 7 nations in how it treats its history. It is the only Group of 7 country without a federal law that actually blocks the demolition of heritage buildings. Instead, the federal framework relies on the Historic Sites and Monuments Act, a statute designed to commemorate places rather than protect them. Under this framework, a national historic designation carries no enforceable right to survival. A bronze plaque can be bolted to a 19th century brick wall, but that plaque offers no physical or legal defense against a bulldozer. If municipal or provincial approvals proceed, a building officially recognized as a significant piece of the nation's story can still be legally reduced to rubble. This legislative gap means Canada's federal government celebrates the past while remaining powerless to save it. It creates a system of symbolic recognition, leaving the actual survival of historic sites to a fragmented patchwork of local rules. Before a single excavator arrives at a site, the legal structure has already cleared the path for its disappearance. The economic machinery driving this systematic demolition loop began in the 1940s, engineered by a single civil servant. William Clifford Clark, who served as Canada's Deputy Minister of Finance from 1932 to 1952, spearheaded a massive redesign of the Income Tax Act. Clark was a trained academic who viewed the country's turn-of-the-century brick and timber structures as obsolete obstacles to progress. In his own writings, he dismissed these older commercial buildings, describing them in archival documents as pre-industrial. This worldview directly shaped the post-war tax framework. Instead of treating buildings as permanent community assets, the new system reclassified them as depreciable property. They became temporary capital assets destined to be written off and replaced. By transforming physical places into depreciable tax vehicles, Clark's policy ensured that a building's financial value would eventually drop to zero, making its eventual erasure the most rational economic outcome. This system operates through the Capital Cost Allowance, or CCA, a tax mechanism that treats buildings like laptop computers or delivery vans. Each year, the tax code allows commercial property owners to deduct a percentage of a building's value from their taxable income. As these annual deductions are claimed, the building's remaining tax value, known as the undepreciated capital cost, steadily declines. But once that value is written down to zero, the financial equation changes. A fully depreciated building stops delivering those tax deductions, even while maintenance costs and property taxes continue to pile up. On a corporate balance sheet, a historic brick structure can look like a dead asset. This is where the tax code makes demolition the logical path. If the owner tears the building down, the Canada Revenue Agency allows them to deduct those demolition costs immediately. And if the building is the sole asset in its tax class, any remaining tax value that has not been written off can be claimed as a terminal loss. By wiping the slate clean, the owner secures an immediate tax shield, turning destruction into a direct financial advantage. The financial penalty on preservation is not confined to income tax. It is also built directly into the sales tax system. Under the Excise Tax Act, developers can claim a substantial renovation rebate to offset GST or HST on major projects. But to qualify for this rebate, the law demands a project meet the substantial renovation test, which requires removing or replacing at least 90% of the building's non-structural elements. This means stripping out almost all interior walls, ceilings, doors, and flooring. For a developer, gutting a historic structure to its bare studs makes economic sense because it unlocks the rebate. For a conservationist, however, preserving the original plaster, historic trim, and old-growth timber layout means retaining too much of the original fabric. By choosing to restore rather than destroy, the heritage project fails the 90% threshold. The tax code actively penalizes preservation for doing exactly what it is supposed to do, keeping the past intact. This institutional bias was not inevitable. Other nations built legal and tax systems specifically to prevent destruction. The United Kingdom's Planning Listed Buildings and Conservation Areas Act of 1990 gives historic properties direct statutory protection. In 1976, the United States established a federal historic tax credit, a policy that has since funneled more than $100 billion of private investment into building rehabilitation. Canada signed the UNESCO World Heritage Convention that very same year, but failed to build any equivalent national tool to protect or incentivize preservation. In Vancouver, developers demolished 23,485 of the city's 68,000 single-family homes from 1985 to 2014. Most were structurally sound, torn down only to be rebuilt on the exact same footprint. In Toronto, a looming provincial deadline in January 2027 threatens to strip protection from nearly 3,600 heritage properties overnight. Across the prairies, the same financial equation cleared the horizon, dismantling Alberta's wooden grain elevators until fewer than 200 remained of the original 1,700. This erasure is not accidental, it is written directly into local communities. Construction and demolition account for 40% of Canada's total energy use, producing 20 to 30 times more waste per square metre than a renovation. Each year, landfills swallow 1.39 million tonnes of wood, discarding irreplaceable old-growth timber and releasing stored carbon. Rebuilding then creates a carbon debt that takes decades to repay. This exposes a national contradiction. Can a country claim to value its history and environment while maintaining a tax system that makes erasure the cheapest option? Solving this requires direct reform, creating preservation tax classes, lowering renovation rebate thresholds to 50%, and establishing a federal historic tax credit. Can a country truly value its heritage when federal policies make erasure the cheapest option? Until we shift incentives from disposal to preservation, Canada's history will keep ending up in landfills. The choice is ours to demand. Share your thoughts in the comments.